into show and tell with the some stuff we've been shopping for. So, and then time got away from us, so we were bringing all kinds of stuff out. And you can see that if you're coming to the members of the Patreon Zooms. Anyway, hi, Whisper to Me. Hi, Jujubes. Hello to Scooter. Let's see. We have Deborah Vancouvered in, and I'm not in live chat. And let me do that right now. Gail B. Okay, Larky. So there's an update in the kidnapping case. They did arrest the brother of Salgado. Okay, so he's 41, Salgado's 48. They arrested him, so we're going to look into that right now. And then there's also Lori Vallow Daybell. Her trial now is suspended. Unbelievable. They're going to look into some more competency issues now with her. So that's ridiculous because that wasn't even until next year. So let's take a look at what's going on here. Let's talk about Daybell quickly first. Okay. There she is, Lori Daybell. The Idaho judge in charge of her trial said that he has new concerns over her competency to stand trial. The case was previously paused in June of 2021 when Vallow Daybell was declared incompetent. She was sent to a state facility, and then 10 months later she was deemed competent to stand trial. But now District Judge Stephen Boyce had a closed hearing on Wednesday after her attorneys filed a motion asking for a pause in the court proceedings, and prosecutors submitted a response under seal. Due to legal issues raised by counsel in the motions and during the hearing, this case is hereby suspended until a determination of Mrs. Daybell's competency to stand trial can be determined, Stephen Boyce wrote in an order that was released on Thursday. As a result of a need to determine Mrs. Daybell's competency, the court sees no other alternative at this time than to vacate the January 9th, 2023 trial. That's great. The Daybells have been charged in the murders of the two Vallow Daybell children, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, as well as Daybell's first wife, Tammy Daybell. The children were found dead. They were buried in Chad Daybell's backyard in a pet cemetery in June of 2020 after they vanished in the fall of 2019. Tammy Daybell died mysteriously shortly before Chad and Lori got married in a ceremony on the beach. And Vallow Daybell has also been charged with conspiracy in the death of her previous husband, Charles Vallow, who was shot to death that same summer by her brother, Alex, who claimed self-defense, but he died a few months later. Kay Woodcock, J.J. Vallow's grandmother, said she was angry and disappointed beyond belief by the delay. And she said, and I quote, "It seems the only ones getting their way are Chad and Lori. J.J., Tylee, and Tammy didn't have a choice. Everyone who loved them didn't have a choice. We can't even have their bodies for a memorial service. Where's the justice? It's surely not here." The bodies of J.J. and Tylee have been in the state's custody since their discovery. Vallow Daybell was scheduled to appear on a hearing on October 13th, but will no longer be there. Chad will attend with his attorney, John Pryor, who will argue several motions, including a request to sever his trial from his wife's. Pryor has also asked to postpone Daybell's trial until after October 2023, despite opposing the prosecution's previous attempts to delay the trial until next fall. Prosecutors also filed a motion Thursday opposing Pryor's request that Daybell be allowed to wear street clothes during trial, citing Boyce's ban on cameras in the courtroom. Given the new posture of these proceedings in relation to the media's access to images of the defendants, the state's concern regarding jury contamination has been dispelled, and the state would request that defendants no longer be allowed to appear in street clothes, said Prosecutor Lindsay Blake. Blake and the co-prosecutor Rob Wood opposed Pryor's motion to allow cameras at Daybell's trial, noting that the trial has already been covered and reopening it is a waste of time for the courts and resources. Blake and Wood also responded to a motion by John Pryor requesting transcripts from the grand jury proceedings last December. The prosecutors acknowledged the December grand jury, but wrote that Daybell has not been charged by any other grand jury. The grand jury, they said, was convened under a separate case number, and the filings and proceedings are not public. It's unknown what that case involves, and no other cases have been filed against either defendant. So that's great. So I guess maybe all that crazy smiling and stuff she was doing, I don't know. Now there's a missing toddler and a lot of craziness with this involved. The Georgia toddler's grandmother and her husband have legal custody of him and his 3-year-old brother, and the grandmother had filed last month to evict her daughter and her boyfriend from the house where they all lived. Leilani Simon, 20-month-old Quentin Simon's mother, reported the boy missing shortly after 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday, and she told the Chatham County Police that she last saw him around 6 p.m. And I believe that's supposed to be 6 a.m. because we have this. Billy Joe Howell, Leilani Simon's mother, wrote that her daughter and her boyfriend, Daniel Youngkin, have damaged my property, and at this point, no one is living in peace, she said. She said that Leilani Simon wasn't looking for work, and she wanted the two out as soon as possible. She told them, Billy Joe said that she was working at a temporary job out of town when Quentin disappeared. Her husband, Thomas Howell, remained behind, and it was the boy's babysitter who called to let her know that Quentin was missing. She headed back to Georgia immediately, and she also told the media that she's not sure if she trusts her daughter or not. I just know I'm hurting, and I want this baby home, she said. He's my baby. The babysitter, Diane MacGyver, said that she had been scheduled to babysit Quentin and his older brother Wednesday morning, but the family called before 6 a.m. and said she wasn't needed. She said she was shocked to learn later in the morning that the little boy was missing. Chatham County Police Chief Jeff Hadley said that investigators were working 18-hour days to find the little missing boy. There's a very sequential process that takes place here, he said. It may be frustrating to the general public. It may be frustrating to y'all that things aren't developing as quickly as you may like, but we've got to make sure that we're doing the right thing, that we're being lawful, and we're making sure we dot our I's and cross our T's so that if we discover evidence, it can be admissible in court, and we can use it in court if we have to. Earlier on Friday, Hadley updated county commissioners on the investigation at their regular meeting, providing a little more information than was already reported. He said that search crews had exhausted the ground search grid, but were not giving up. Although later Friday, police said they'd searched a pond in the area. Hadley asked if the commissioners had any questions after he finished his report, but Commissioner Chairman Chester A. Ellis interrupted and told the commissioner not to ask any questions about the investigation because Hadley had told them all that he could. Okay, and then on Friday, the Uvalde, Texas school district suspended its entire police department amid criticism of their handling of May's mass shooting at Robb Elementary School that killed 19 students and 2 teachers. In a statement that was issued to the Texas Tribune, the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District said Director of Students Services Ken Mueller decided to retire upon learning that he and the acting police chief lieutenant Miguel Hernandez were placed on leave. Police officers in the department will be appointed to other roles in the district, officials say. The school district said that they issued the department-wide suspension due to recent developments that have uncovered additional concerns with department operations. The Austin American-Statesman reported that the Texas Department of Public Safety troopers will provide security for campus in the school district. The Texas Department of Public Safety Director Colonel Stephen McCraw called the response to the May 24th shooting an abject failure, and he blamed Pete Arredondo, who was the chief of the Uvalde School District Police. Arredondo was fired in August. McCraw said that Arredondo failed to promptly confront the 18-year-old gunman Salvador Ramos, despite being the on-scene commander. McCraw said Arredondo had to do what he needed to do to breach the classroom where the gunman was within 3 minutes, but the officer stayed in the hallway for 77 minutes. Video footage that was obtained suggests that officers stood by after the initial gunfire, even as the gunman fired 4 additional rounds. Officers remained inactive even after asking for keys to a presumably unlocked classroom and gathering tear gas, gas masks, and a sledgehammer. An officer is heard saying that they're making entry at one point, but it does not occur. Various agencies responded to the scene, including Texas Ranger, U.S. Border Patrol, and U.S. Marshal Service. Despite this, there was an hour and 14 minutes before anyone entered the classroom and fatally shot Ramos. By then, 21 people died in that classroom. Arredondo told the media that he did not bring his 2 radios as he believed that they would weigh him down. He also claimed that he spent an hour trying to unlock a classroom door that separated him from the gunman. However, officials now believe that Ramos had barricaded himself inside an unlocked classroom and students waited more than an hour to be rescued. Further security footage reportedly showed that police never tried to open the classroom door, which would contradict Arredondo's claims that he spent an hour in the hallway trying to locate a key that would open the door. Earlier this week, the Department of Public Safety trooper Crimson Elizondo was hired to school district police only to be fired as she faced backlash for her response to May's mass shooting. Elizondo resigned from the Department of Public Safety over the summer. Before she was hired by the school police department, she reportedly responded to the mass shooting within 2 minutes, but body cam footage caught her standing alongside 91 other DPS officers who waited 77 minutes to take down the gunman. In the video, someone was heard asking Elizondo whether she had any other children in the school. "If my son had been there, I would not have been outside," she said. "I promise you that." Okay, so now let's look at this tragic kidnapping and murder of this family, including the 8-month-old baby. And California authorities have arrested a second suspect related to the kidnapping and murder of the family of 4 earlier this week in Merced County. Merced County Sheriff's Office said it has arrested Alberto Salgado, who's 41, on Thursday, and they charged him with criminal conspiracy, accessory, and destroying evidence. Alberto Salgado is the brother of Jesus Salgado, who is already in custody for the kidnapping and murder of 8-month-old Arohi Dari, her parents, Jaslyn Kaur, 27, Jasdeep Singh, 36, and her uncle, 39-year-old Amandeep Singh. Surveillance video showed the family being loaded into Amandeep Singh's pickup truck on Monday by an armed masked man, and by Tuesday, investigators had identified Jesus Salgado as the suspect, but he tried to self-harm himself before the police got to him. He was hospitalized initially in critical condition, but booked into jail on Thursday. So now these are the... On Wednesday, the Merced County Sheriff's Office announced that the bodies of the family had been found in a remote almond orchard in Merced County by a farm worker. Investigators have not yet revealed the cause of death, but family members say that the baby was left to die of exposure with the bodies of her parents and uncle. Exposure in Merced? That's kind of strange, isn't it? Family members also said that Jesus Salgado had worked as a driver for the family's trucking business, but left after a dispute that Merced County Sheriff Vern Warnke called a long-standing feud. His relatives called police when he admitted his involvement in the crime. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation said that Jesus Salgado was released from prison in 2015 after serving time for robbery, attempted false imprisonment, and an attempt to prevent or dissuade a victim or witnesses, and he was discharged from parole in 2018. That's where it's so exposure. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wow. So they don't say where he was. Was he in there with the? Was he driving a car that dropped his brother off? What was he doing? Interesting. Okay. Okay, this is, you know how you have a stupid criminal? This has to be one. She's a fugitive, but you won't believe where she goes for a job interview. A New Jersey woman was arrested on Tuesday for outstanding warrants at a police station where she applied for a job. Zaima Johnson, 27, was wanted in Monroe County, Pennsylvania for failing to appear in court on fraud charges. She also had 10 bench warrants in Jersey City, New Jersey for failing to appear in traffic court. Sheriff Frank Scolari said that Johnson applied for a security guard job with Hudson County Police. Upon confirming she had outstanding warrants, police reportedly lured Johnson to the station under the guise of a job interview. Instead, Johnson was arrested. Scolari said she is facing additional theft charges because she was found to be in possession of 2 stolen credit cards at the time of her arrest. The sheriff also told the media that the United States Postal Investigative Services has launched its own probe as Johnson previously worked for the Postal Service. Johnson's being held in Hudson County Jail as she awaits extradition to Pennsylvania. Not too smart to go for a job. I mean, good, she was going for a job interview, not when you're a fugitive with warrants to the police station. Okay, now this woman. A Hamilton County judge in Indiana sentenced a woman to serve centuries in prison for poisoning her baby's father and choking him with his favorite tie. 42-year-old Heidi Littlefield was sentenced Friday morning to 115 years in the state prison, which includes 60 years for murder, 20 years for attempted poisonings, and 35 years for conspiracy to commit murder resulting in death. The sentences were reportedly set to run consecutively. Kelly has already accumulated 748 days in jail credit, with around 187 of those being good time credit. Littlefield is one of 3 defendants who was found guilty in connection with the death of Francis Kelly, 46 years old. The other defendants, Logan Runyon and Robert Walker, previously took a plea deal which reduced their charges to conspiracy. Kelly was found dead on a couch at his Carmel home on January 18, 2021. An ex-girlfriend alerted police when he failed to pick up their 9-year-old daughter for her birthday. Investigators observed bruising on Kelly's eye, elbow, and knees and hands. He was found on the couch with a bag of cocaine under him. Despite this, police said at the time they found no evidence suggesting foul play was involved in Kelly's death. A subsequent autopsy concluded that Kelly was strangled and sustained blunt force trauma to his head. Fentanyl was reportedly found in his system, leading detectives to deem his death a homicide. At the time of his death, Kelly and another one of his ex-girlfriends, Littlefield, was in a custody battle involving their 2-year-old daughter. Littlefield, along with her daughter, Runyon, and her daughter's boyfriend, Walker, was subsequently arrested and criminally charged in connection with Kelly's death. Text messages suggested that Littlefield was in Kelly's home on January 14, 2021. That was the day before he last communicated with anyone. In the messages, the two discussed an upcoming custody hearing. Then Kelly asked Littlefield if she tampered with some oatmeal that he ate. You were in my fridge last night, and the oatmeal tasted funny after a couple of bites, and now I'm lightheaded. I just got off the phone with my broker, and I had to ask him to repeat basic things, Kelly wrote. Littlefield denied the allegation and did not read or respond to subsequent messages sent by Kelly. Police say Littlefield was heard in recordings telling an ex-boyfriend about planting drugs on Kelly, wanting him dead. At one point, Littlefield said Kelly was abusive, and she would be failing her daughter if he remained alive. According to a relative that was interviewed by the police, Littlefield also said she didn't mean to kill him last time and insinuated that she would claim she was crazy and pregnant when she carried out the slaying. Walker, who was jailed in Ohio at the time of his arrest last year, told police that Littlefield tried to kill Kelly on at least 2 other instances. He said Littlefield and her 2-year-old daughter snuck into Kelly's home in October and laced his miso soup with fentanyl. Runyon reportedly stayed in the car at that time. In regards to January's incident, which resulted in Kelly's death, Runyon allegedly told Walker that she and her mother snuck into Kelly's apartment after he ate the fentanyl-laced oatmeal. Walker said the pair found Kelly unresponsive, but he was not dead. According to the media, Walker advised Heidi tried to get Logan to snap his neck, but Logan couldn't do it. So Heidi then tied his favorite tie around his neck and began smashing his head into the ground. After the murder, Walker paid someone $40 to drive into Indiana to pick up Runyon from Littlefield's home. Littlefield gave Walker $2,500 in October to kill Kelly. Text messages apparently showed Littlefield telling Walker on multiple occasions that he failed to do work around the house and that she paid him for it. Speaking with police, Walker explained that doing work was Littlefield's code word for killing Kelly. Walker admitted to accepting $2,500 from Littlefield and said he spent much of the money on drugs. Littlefield intended to have Runyon take the blame for Kelly's murder, claiming the pair had a tumultuous relationship. Walker recounted an instance in which Littlefield asked her daughter if she would be willing to go to prison for the rest of her life. Runyon told Walker that she planned to go along with the plan. Crazy. Well, now she's in jail for the rest of her life. A man who was housed in the same Wisconsin prison as Jeffrey Dahmer says he does not regret trying to kill the prolific serial killer months before his murder in 1994. Osvaldo Durfee was sentenced in 1992 to 31 years for cocaine and firearms possession, but he received an additional 5 years for slashing Dahmer's throat with a razor blade. Durfee, now 65, told the Daily Mail that he pretended to be mentally ill to get transferred to Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, where Dahmer was serving multiple life sentences. Dahmer, an ex-offender, killed 17 men and boys between 78 and 91, with many of his victims being black and racial minorities. He also mutilated and cannibalized many of them in addition to preserving their remains. 5 months after Durfee tried to kill Dahmer, prisoner Christopher Scarver finally attacked Dahmer and another inmate. At the time, Scarver was serving a life sentence for robbing and killing a man in 1990. Scarver, 53, is currently serving 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Durfee never met Dahmer before he was sent to prison, but he claimed to be aware of his crimes and became obsessed with killing him. I've done a lot of bad things in my life that wouldn't make my family too proud. I thought that if I killed him, I could make up for some of those bad things that I had done, Durfee said. I wanted to kill him for my family and for the black community. According to the Daily Mail, Durfee took pills and acted erratically so that he would be deemed schizophrenic, transferred to the prison in June of 1994. Once there, Durfee was placed in a cell next to Dahmer. Durfee said he spotted Dahmer in the dining hall. He ate alone, but would give prisoners his food if they asked. I've never said a word to Jeffrey Dahmer in my life. I would sit a few tables away at the dining hall observing him while he ate, with a smile on my face, thinking to myself, I'm going to kill you one day. He said he also recalled, he is what he recalled. Okay. Oh, Dahmer was moved to another unit away from Durfee before the murder attempt. However, Durfee realized that prisoners were allowed to congregate during Sunday services, so he attended in hopes of seeing Dahmer. and Dorothy went there with a shank. Razor blades that are affixed to a toothbrush handle is the shank. Prison guards did not find the shank when Dorothy attended Sunday services. Dahmer was sitting 3 rows in front of Dorothy, who told guards that his stomach was upset so he could use the bathroom and move the shank from his waistband to his sock, presumably for easier access. According to the Daily Mail, Dorothy then returned to the hall and sat right behind Dahmer. As soon as he sat down, I removed the shank from my sock, put it in my right hand. I stood up. With my left arm, I put Dahmer in a headlock, and with my right hand, I began to slash his throat with the razor shank. I was slashing him back and forth as fast as I could. Dorothy also said he kept Dahmer in a headlock and he punched him in the face as Dahmer screamed, "I didn't do anything." Paroled in 2016, Dorothy told the Daily Mail that he's glad Dahmer's dead. He said he believes other inmates targeted Dahmer after he tried to kill him. I wanted to kill Dahmer. He ate people, but I guess God was watching over me and didn't want me to kill him. I don't regret what I did. If I had the chance, I would do it again. Dorothy currently lives in Madison, Wisconsin. He said he has not watched the popular Netflix series which depicts the violent murder attempt, but he expressed disappointment that the producers never contacted him. He reiterated, "I'm glad Dahmer's dead." Shoot, what did I do with that? Where are you? Former Georgia lawyer Claude MacGyver must remain in jail while waiting for his second murder trial to begin. And that's the ruling of a judge during a Fulton County court hearing on Friday morning. According to AJC, MacGyver's lawyer had been pushing for him to be allowed to live with his sister in Texas while awaiting trial. MacGyver stands accused of murdering his wife, Diane, in 2016. He looks like somebody I know. The Georgia Supreme Court granted MacGyver a new trial in June after the court ruled unanimously that the jury should have been allowed to consider a lesser charge, involuntary manslaughter. He's now serving time for nothing he's been convicted of, said defense attorney Don Samuel, and requested a $220,000 bond. Prosecutor Adam Abbott argued that circumstances are different now. MacGyver has less to lose, which makes him a flight risk. He's older. He's 80 years old. He looks pretty good for 80. After being convicted of murder, he's less likely to return to court because he's got less to lose. 4 witnesses were called to testify during the latest hearing involving Danny Jo Carter, identified as Diane's friend, and the person who was driving the SUV when MacGyver shot his wife. He had no respect for conditions of his bond the first time, Carter said, adding that MacGyver was busted for having a gun in his home, which violated his previous bond conditions. McBurney ultimately sided with the prosecution and said, "Facing life in prison is a powerful incentive for you, Mr. MacGyver, not to come back to court and face some of the evidence, of the same evidence." And that's his wife. In June, Justice Michael Boggs wrote that the state evidence for MacGyver and having intentionally killed Diane MacGyver, a Buckhead business executive, was not overwhelming or even strong. Indeed, Briggs wrote, the state's evidence of intent was weak, as no witnesses testified to any disagreement or quarrel between MacGyver and Diane, and many witnesses testified they were very much in love. Prosecutors presented evidence to show MacGyver had a financial motive to kill his wife, but Boggs called that evidence thin. MacGyver was sentenced to life in prison in 2018 after his conviction. Most of the facts involving the September 25, 2016 shooting were not in dispute. MacGyver was riding in the back seat of a Ford Expedition driven by his wife's best friend, Danny Jo Carter, and Diane was in the front passenger seat. The trio was returning to Atlanta from the MacGyver's 84-acre ranch in Putnam County. As they arrived in the city, MacGyver reportedly asked for his .38 caliber revolver from the center console, according to a statement, because they had driven up on a Black Lives Matter protest, while in another statement he said it was for protection against homeless people. MacGyver fell asleep in the back seat with the gun in his lap in a plastic bag. According to testimony, as they pulled up to a traffic light on Piedmont Avenue, Diane MacGyver, 64, told her husband to wake up and not fall asleep. MacGyver fired one shot, which went through her seat and struck his wife in the back of the head. MacGyver had Carter drive to Emory Hospital, despite other hospitals being practically within walking distance, where his wife died during surgery. The Chief Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney sentenced MacGyver to life in prison after MacGyver had spent more than 15 minutes talking about his fans, his godson, his love of Chick-fil-A food, and his prison pen pals. I'll tell you what's most telling, McBurney said. You've had as much time as you want to share with me what you thought was important for me to hear, and I guess your audience to hear. I didn't even hear you say you're sorry for what you did. To me, that speaks volumes. In his opinion, Boggs noted MacGyver's contention that he was startled awake by his wife and he inadvertently pulled the trigger because of it. From this sentence, the jury could have concluded that the revolver was not deliberately or intentionally fired, but rather, as MacGyver suggests, discharged as a result of being startled awake relatively or involuntarily, clutching at the bag, holding the firearm, and inadvertently contacting the trigger. If MacGyver intended to fatally shoot Diane, why would he do it in the presence of Carter, and why would he do it in Midtown Atlanta, within a few miles of several major hospitals instead of at the rural interstate, far from any medical aid? The High Court upheld a second conviction for influencing a witness, for which MacGyver, a well-connected Republican attorney known for union busting, was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He has now served 4 years and 10 months. MacGyver's attorneys issued a statement saying they were pleased with the ruling. He was deprived of a fair trial because the jury was not given the opportunity to find the shooting was entirely the result of negligence as opposed to an intentional killing. Attorneys Amanda Clark Palmer, Bruce Harvey, and Don Samuel said he was entitled to a fair trial and he did not get a fair trial. Okay, and I have to say that's going to be the end of the true crime for tonight because I am falling asleep. Okay. You're watching The Crown, Nancy. That's great. So, I don't know if you watched any of that Kylie Rodney footage of the camera from the forest fire camera where you see a car going into the lake. I don't know what you think of that, but I am utterly exhausted. It's 3 a.m. We're going to end this here because it's just been a long, long day. And sorry we came on late. We were in a Zoom late. If you want to come to the Zoom, it's open to members and Patreons. And you're welcome to come in. I will see you guys later. Prayers for all that need them. Thank you guys for watching. And tomorrow, hopefully, I don't know, we'll do something maybe in the day too, okay? All right, everybody have a good night. Good night now. Good night, everybody. Okay.